What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Unpolished Podcast. Today, we got our man Joey, the real deal, real MMA owner, ADCC Phoenix Open Advanced Champion.
Phoenix, I took third.
Phoenix took third.
I've placed in every tournament I've done for ADCC except for one, and that was a heartbreaker. But yeah, I've taken first in Chicago.
What was the one you didn't place in?
That was Long Beach, California.
Okay.
Yeah, it was the beginning of this year.
Yeah.
That was a tough one.
How long you been doing this?
Jiu Jitsu or just martial arts in general?
I guess all in general, everything.
Yeah. So I mean, I started. I would count wrestling as like a martial art. So I started wrestling when I was maybe 5, 6 years old. That led me towards falling in love as a kid with mixed martial arts and Jiu Jitsu. And I found Jiu Jitsu when I was 14, and I've been training that ever since.
So it went wrestling to Jiu Jitsu, then you did your MMA career.
Yeah. I fought MMA. I've had 35 MMA fights.
Holy shit! I did not know that.
Yeah, I fought a bunch. Amateur, professional, all that.
Oh my god!
Yeah.
I did not know that. I knew you had a little stint, but I didn't think it was 35 fights.
I mean, I started fighting while I was still in high school. I had my first MMA fight my senior year in high school. Once I turned 18, and I fought my first 12 months. I think I had 11 fights in 12 months.
Wow.
Yeah. Back when it was like amateur fights, I would fight every single month. I fought one time, twice in 1 week. This is back,
Dude, when that's unheard of now.
Yeah, definitely very rare now.
So
different sport.
Were you just not
like.
taking damage, or?
Yeah, a lot of my fights, because of my grappling background, I would end up finishing really quick. And if you feel good, to me, I thought of it, and this is maybe a little bit of just being young and naive. I really just treated it like competition for wrestling. I didn't think of it so seriously. I was like, I'll just go do it. Just like tournaments in wrestling. Anyone who wrestles, you wrestle, every single weekend. Sometimes Thursday night and then Saturday for a tournament.
Yeah.
I would view like MMA like that, which it's pretty crazy when you think about, and at the lower level, especially at that time, back in like 2009 is when I started. So it's like I would just go fight some guy who didn't know how to do jiu-jitsu. So he was trying to kick me and punch me, and I would just choke him. I had no damage, then we just go.
Well, and the MMA has changed so much where to be a champion, you have to be a black belt.
And I would even argue like the amateur level now is really, really good.
Well,
compared to when I
typically, doesn't someone now, because I feel like, and you can tell me if I'm wrong or tell me if I'm talking out of my ass, but guys back then, they started with the punching and the kicking and the striking, and they thought they could just knock everyone out. And now it's kind of the reverse. These guys getting into MMA are coming from more jiu-jitsu background and then adding the striking later.
Well, I think like the classic story for MMA is the stylistic approach to it. So you had all these different styles. So you had a wrestler who didn't know how to punch and saw MMA, saw a fight, and said, I could do that. And then they would learn enough to kind of use their skill set. And then you had strikers who would do the same. And so it was more of a stylistic matchup. Nowadays, no one comes from an individual background.
Everyone's got a little bit of a background in everything now.
Yeah, and from a young age, it's really, really impressive now to watch some of the like 18-year-old, 19-year-olds today who are fighting MMA. They've been doing it since they were like 4. Just MMA, not just jiu-jitsu or wrestling, but they've been training the sport of MMA since they were kids, which that didn't exist. I mean, literally didn't exist till 1993 is when the UFC kind of started. So there wasn't really an option when I was a kid.
Yeah.
Pretty much, I'm sure you're around the same age as me. But
yeah,
what was popular?
You said you started fighting in 2009. How old are you?
I'm 33 now.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah. So
when's your birthday?
February 14th, Valentine's Day. It's a very popular one.
Yeah, I'm November 7th.
Nice. Yeah. So I mean, it's like when we were kids, it was like Taekwondo. Karate wasn't even that popular anymore. I think that's more of like an 80s thing. I think we missed the wave of Karate Kid and all that. But Taekwondo, did you do Taekwondo as a kid? I'm sure.
I did. I actually
everyone did.
I did some kind of karate. My dad was a black belt.
Okay, awesome. So
I kind of grew up in it. That striking and all that came very natural to me, but we did no grappling when I was younger. There was none. It was just like
not that popular, right? Yeah.
I just remember this.
Yeah, I do remember that too. Right? Horse stance and just punching.
I remember that.
So, I had my traditional, Taekwondo background as a little kid. Nothing serious, and it was just like I remember even as a kid thinking like, I don't think this is gonna do anything for me in a fight. And I, because I wrestled, and I just remember like feeling like if I can grab someone, none of this will matter. And then like, you know, being able to prove that to myself in reality once I got old enough, even in high school, you know, getting in little fights and whatnot. But, you know, you start to realize how effective good grappling is.
Yeah. So I've always said to be a fighter, you have to have a little bit of a screw loose.
Oh yeah. Well,
Do you
couple
feel
screws.
well, I feel like
The
fighting as
hinges
many
are kind of
fights.
loose all over.
I was gonna say, as many fights as you had, I feel like the screws get more and more loose.
Yeah.
But what made you want to go in and beat the shit out of someone?
So I would say I was never compelled or pushed with the motivation of fighting, as in like I wasn't trying to beat the shit out of people. It was never in my head. And I know some.
But
people,
you have to be willing to do that.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah. So you know, I really try to put myself back in that time and try to think what was I thinking, and in my head, what I remember was the respectful part of it. I enjoyed competition. I just feel like I just happened to be very short, very light. There's no way. I love football. If I could play football, did you play football? I'm assuming?
Yeah, that was my thing. Yeah,
I
played a little professional
if I was
arena.
I would have loved to have done that. That would have been what I would have done, and I think I would have treated it the same way, you know, as a kid when I was younger. And I know, I look at it now and I just realize that like fighting is it's a totally different mentality. But as a young kid, at 18 years old, I treated it like it was a competition. I became there. I would say that for the most part, the people who I competed against or fought against, a lot of them are great people who I became friends with, ended up training with later. Not all of them. Some people are assholes, and some people are just going into that profession or into that world.
Just like any world.
Yeah, just like
any world.
I would say probably like, so I use Jiu Jitsu as a reference. Like in the sport of Jiu Jitsu, about 90% of people are cool, and then there's the 10%. In MMA world is probably the reverse.
Yeah.
There's like 10% of them are really cool, and then 90% are kind of tools. But,
Yeah.
So I just remember as a kid, like being very motivated by the element of competition, trying to make myself better as a martial artist, trying to test myself to see what are my flaws, what do I need to work on. So I was always drawn to that. I wasn't.
You were drawn more to the competition aspect.
Yeah, I just loved it, and I feel like MMA to me, just I don't know what that was. I think there was obviously a couple moments when I was young, watching the UFC, watching Hoist Gracie, watching my biggest. Some of my biggest influences like Jens Pulver when I was a kid. I love Jens. I don't know if you know who that is.
No, I don't.
He was the first ever UFC lightweight champion. So he was one of the smallest guys at the time. And he was small for that weight. And later in life, which was pretty cool, we ended up becoming training partners, got to train together a lot. But I remember as like maybe like 8, 9 years old watching him and being like, oh, he's a small guy. I could probably do this, instead of watching I wasn't as motivated by all the heavyweights, who are obviously the more popular fighters.
Yeah, because it's just the eye-catching aspect of it.
But man, I just loved wrestling. I loved grappling. Always have. And I feel like the idea of like hurting someone is not even on my mind. I know it's a consequence of what we're doing. It's martial arts. Like I look up to a lot of guys who have that mentality. Like think of like today. I don't know if are familiar with all the different fighters today, but like someone like Stephen Thompson, Wonder Boy Thompson. It's like the way he competes is so ferocious, but he's the nicest guy in the world.
Nicest guy ever.
And I felt very compelled.
He hasn't fought in a while.
It's been a little bit. I think he's got something coming up, maybe.
Okay.
I
was going to say, he's kind of the back end, though.
Yeah, he's definitely older.
Yeah,
which is funny because he's Wonder
30s,
Boy, but he's like, I think he's almost 40.
Yeah.
He might be 40 even.
Yeah.
But just the mentality of it, and it is kind of like a dying breed. There's not too many left in that kind of way in my brain of people who are motivated totally by competition. Dustin Poirier, who just fought not too long ago, has kind of that vibe to me. I feel that from him. Of course,
I love Dustin,
super
dude.
violent man.
Love Dustin.
But the nicest guy in the world. I mean, literally just the nicest guy to his opponent before, after the match, but can do the most, you would think most vile, mean things to an opponent. But I think it's motivated by a certain character that's not just, I want to hurt someone. It's different.
Yeah.
There's dark, when you talk about the screws loose, there's certainly every single person.
To get started, you got to have have one screw loose, man.
And now as a school owner, as a coach, a teacher, I never want to push people into MMA. I never ever try to do that. I never say, hey, you should do MMA. You should do it, just because it's such a dirty, ugly, it's a nasty sport, and a lot of people don't have what I believe that I had as a kid, which was the right motivation. so it's hard. It's hard for me. I'd have to have someone come to me and ask me about it. You know what I'm saying? I wouldn't push people into it because it's a tough sport to. For a lot of people, it's hard for them to keep themselves in that right realm. They lose the martial arts very quickly. They become fighters really quick.
Like,
if that makes sense to you.
To me, you're speaking more on like the respect aspect.
Yeah.
Of like,
like right motivation, I guess. You know, people lose that, sometimes financially driven, sometimes it's just the ego of loving the idea of being a fighter more than actually, are you interested in how this works and how to get better and to improve?
Well, I think it's the McGregor effect.
Yeah, there you go.
I definitely think it's the McGregor effect because McGregor, you know, hate him, love him, whatever, he completely changed the viewership, who's watching the sport, how much they're watching the sport.
You can't argue. It's definitely exciting. It's definitely fun. Sometimes it feels very inauthentic and not very real. It feels very contrived. It feels fake. You know, that's personal opinion about it.
Well, and I think
it's hard
there was
for me to get behind that.
Yeah, I think there was even something with him and the Floyd's fight where he was like, "Oh yeah, like we're actually good friends and we beefed up for the fight and blah blah blah," and it was all fake. And I know.
Yeah, so you can't argue with that.
I know it's kind of like, what's your take on? Well, Tyson just pulled out of the fight, but what's your take on this whole Jake Paul, Mike Tyson?
Yeah, I heard
thing?
they rescheduled now. Did you see that?
Yeah, something like that. Or
end of the
either
year.
they rescheduled or someone else is
I think they
stepping
just
in.
today announced that they rescheduled for like November.
Okay.
So it was going to be July, and then Mike Tyson had a flare up,
something on the plane.
Yeah, something interesting.
It's like some old man thing.
Honestly, I don't know how I feel about it. I reserve my feelings instead of being.
You're not allowed to do that on
this,
I know. Man. Like that, you're supposed to let the feelings out. That's why we have you.
Those guys. I you know, the whole like the influencer, that would be the culture of it. Like you know, YouTube influencers who got into boxing for whatever you know,
he's a good boxer now.
Yeah, well,
you know?
and so that's what I mean. I'm not
professional.
So it's very easy for people to sit back, especially who haven't fought, and make these judgments about people and be like, "Oh, he's just a YouTuber and he's not good." That's what I mean. So I watch, I observe. I love fighting. I love combat sports. I watch boxing. I watch everything that has. I mean, I go back. You know, when I'm bored, I go and watch old judo matches for just fun. You know, so like that's how much I enjoy.
You're an MMA nerd.
Yeah, total nerd. That's for sure. But you know, with the whole YouTube boxing stuff, it's hard for me to respect it as much as, you know, someone who doesn't get any shine at all, like who have built themselves up. You know, like Terrence Crawford, like someone who it just doesn't get the same level of respect for some reason, even though they did the hard way, like to me the more authentic route. And then you have someone who can just jump everyone. And you know, I guess that's just business. It's how it goes, right? It's viewership.
Life's a game, and Jake played it really well.
Yeah, good for him.
He did.
Went from Disney to now fighting Mike Tyson, the toughest guy in the world.
And he owns a multi-million-dollar mansion in Puerto Rico and all this crap. Yeah, I mean, he played the game, and his brother played the game.
Yeah.
And then Jake played off that game, and then he built himself, and now he's got his own brand. It's like you can hate it as much as you want.
That's what I mean. That's why I hold back this, because it's like, you know,
it's just jealousy, really.
Yeah, I'm not jealous of his life, to be honest. I mean, I'd like to have more money, have a mansion, all that stuff sounds cool.
Sounds cool.
I'm very happy with the way that I treated fighting.
You're a simple man.
Yeah, I'm very simple.
Yeah,
very simple. I don't need a lot, but you know, I just really if I go back to, again, the younger me when I was competing a bunch, I do wish someone would have like looked at me and said, "Hey, slow down, just enjoy it a little bit more, or maybe embrace the journey of it more," because it seems like it went by like a day, you know. And now, you know, I'm sure you understand that too. As being 33, it's like I remember being like 18 and thinking like, "Oh, this is just gonna last forever." Like I could be fighting all the time.
22 was the last age where I was like, I got so much time.
Yeah,
and then it's
22. Like that's funny. I remember that
like yesterday.
Moment. Yeah,
I feel like 22 was yesterday.
Yeah,
and it's just like snap of a finger, like football, arena, starting a business, training, this, that, and it was just like boom. Now I got 2 kids. I got puppy.
Nice.
You know, we're sitting in a house that I would have never ever would have thought
Beautiful
I would
house, by the way.
ever own. Like it's just crazy that. Me and my wife joke all the time, like, how did we get there? Like, what is going on? You know, like, how did we get here?
And to try to convince me that that's not as good as the life that you're talking about with Jake Paul, whatever, you know, none of that. to me that you lived a great life.
Right.
As a simple person myself, what more do you need? As long as you feel content with what you're doing, and it seems like you have a really cool life. I've only known you for a little while. We've interacted a bunch. I think we've even trained together a little bit.
Yeah.
Right.
Which actually, I wanted to bring that up to you.
Yeah.
Alex is already laughing. So
I know we've rolled together, right?
one time, I got a bone to pick with your ass.
So what happened? Did I help you?
So I had permanent braces, right, dude? I came to see you the day after I took them off.
Oh, nice.
So you got me in a rear naked, and I wasn't even. I'm not knocking it. Like, you got me for sure. You got on my back. I started laughing. I was like, "You little motherfucker!" And as I'm like saying, I was talking shit or something. I was having fun with you. You took your forearm and you put it right here, and you kind of cranked me.
I call it the dog bone,
dude. You put my tooth back, and I didn't even realize until.
Did you have to put your braces back on?
No. I got a permanent, or not a permanent. I got a retainer.
Nice.
And it slowly set itself back.
Sorry, man.
No, you're good. I remember thinking, like, damn.
Your dental bill could be sent to me.
Yeah. But I was like, damn, does Joey doesn't like me or something?
No, I don't. Honestly, I believe in the rear naked choke more than any other submission in the world. If I was to give someone, advice, one submission you should master, it's the rear naked choke. Most effective submission of all time.
Yeah.
But then you go grapple with a giant, how big are you?
250.
I'm sure you've said this. It's 250. 6 foot something. You're a big
6'4",
motherfucker.
250. Yeah,
you're a big guy. You got no neck. So to be
dude, yeah. So that's
you got no neck, and he's covered. Like, all right.
So yeah,
I'm telling.
And no one's ever done that to me before. Like, just rolling. Yeah. And again, I'm not mad about it. Like, it is what it is.
Like, you can be mad all you want. It's just that's the effectiveness of it.
No, 100%, 100%. But I just remember thinking, like, no one's ever even tried that with me, because I've only done like 3 competitions or whatever, or 2 competitions. No one's ever even tried that with me, so I wasn't even protecting it, and then just like, oh fuck,
yeah,
like,
this is gonna happen.
Oh shit, tap, and I literally felt like a little.
It's honestly, it's more of a jaw submission. It's
100%.
People call it face crank. I call it like a mandible strangle.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna put my forearm across your jaw, and you're either gonna lift and give me what I really wanted.
No, I didn't give you that.
Or you're like,
I literally cranked, and I tried to protect my chin, so I'm sitting here, and I just felt like a little with my tooth. I was like, no. So,
and I probably smiled at you like,
yeah. Oh, yeah. You laughed at. I was like, yeah, you
awesome.
Little fucker. Like, you got me for sure.
But so this is like the life I live as a smaller person doing jiu-jitsu. Me and my buddy Kyle, we were talking about this yesterday. And, we look around at the community of black belts, people who have made it from white belt to black belt. And the general, body composition are just big guys, big dudes, over 200 pounds. That's the majority of people. I mean, probably 80% of the people I know that I see that are black belts walking around in the jiu-jitsu community, especially locally or just in general. And it says a lot about, what it takes to survive in this game of combat. It's tough for a little guy to survive. And I'm not saying as a small guy, you just got to start cranking on people's faces. But like what I mean is you have to, you really have to fight.
You have to adapt your game.
Yeah, you have to fight to be in this game. It's so easy to quit. I know so many people who same size as me or similar build, similar background, and loved it just as much as I did, but just could not last as long as I have lasted.
Well, that's the beauty of weight classes.
Yeah. Oh, right? Yeah. For competition, I mean that's the whole point of it. But there is no weight classes in training. There's no way. I roll with that. There's no person in the world I would say you're too big. I'm not going to train with you. I've trained with you name it. I've trained with some big dudes. I've trained with a lot of people, and it's just the reality of it. And the facts are, it's not about just like beating everyone up. For me, like I have so much fun just surviving a game. I'll roll with a big guy, and I'm just gonna play and make sure you feel like, man, I couldn't do anything. That's a big joy for me. I can walk away happy after.
Well, I knew walking into rolling with you too. I was like, I'm gonna focus on defense. Like I'd never.
It was a blast, man. You're super tough. I knew, so I didn't know how much you trained, but I remember you saying like I've competed or
Yeah. So I'm definitely the whitest white belt. I did. I had a stint at Constrictor where I did a solid probably 3 or 4 months.
Nice.
And ever since then, I popped out a couple kids, and its business took off a little bit. I've dabbled now.
Yeah.
So it's just
more
like
sporadic training. Right?
Yeah. And you called my ass out when we were talking after we rolled. I was just like, yeah, man, it's just tough. And you're like, hey, no excuses, man. I was like, fuck, you just said my motto.
Yeah, there you go. Well, especially for that type of, like, when you're making a lifestyle choice.
Yeah.
That's what your lifestyle consists of: your kids, your family, your whatever, every excuse that you have. That means that's your lifestyle. And
100%.
martial arts to me is not just a little hobby, personally. And I'm sure it should be the same thing for you with fitness. It can't just
Fitness
be
is not a hobby. Fitness is a lifestyle.
Yeah, it has to be a lifestyle, and that means the rest of your life has to come along for the ride. And I know I have great people in my life when it comes to students who have every excuse in the world and they still make the time. And whether that's once a week, sometimes they'll go a couple weeks without training, but I always know that it's a part of their life. I have a good friend. I think you probably met Kenny. Kenny's a big guy too. Kenny Varro. So he's a student of mine. He's been training for about a year and a half, but he's got 4 kids, maybe even 5 kids.
I'm pretty sure that's the guy you pointed out when I was
like, oh, here's a big guy. Go roll with him.
Yeah. I'm just like, I was like, kids are killing me. And you're like, this guy over here's got like 20 kids.
Look,
or
they're
whatever.
following him. They're like ducks behind him.
Yeah.
Like,
well, my kids are getting to that age now where I can bring them with. So 3 and 1.
Nice.
So 1.5
Starting
for
to get fun
Luke.
then, right? Yeah.
Yeah. So, and I'll have to show you. Maybe Stevie will perform for you, but he's got a solid arm bar.
Nice.
He's got a rear naked choke.
And that's part of the lifestyle.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You can still make, and it's for everything. I'm sure. Do you have your 3-year-old doing any kind of workouts with you or going out for fun?
Yeah. When we go to the gym, I'll say, all right, we got to do our 20 pull-ups. We got to do our 20 squats.
You make it fun. You make it enjoyable.
Exactly. Yeah. So, and he actually jumped in on a football camp that we do for, it's like 5 and up for.
I'm sure he's already my
McHenry.
weight, so I train with him.
He's big. He's as big as a couple 5-year-olds in that
That's
camp.
awesome.
So yeah, he's gonna be a big boy. My other one I think is gonna be more like a stout, like runt.
Nice.
But Stevie's gonna be big. Luke is
Don't
gonna be.
disrespect the runts. We can
not
hold
at all.
ourselves
Not
up.
at all. I'm already calling him like my running back.
Nice.
Stevie's
Stout.
gonna be like. I want him to be Camp Chancellor, like a strong safety style.
Okay.
Luke's gonna be more like the running back. At least that's my guess. You never know. Like kids are gonna change so much.
Yeah, I mean, people thought I was going to be tall too. Like I was like the big kid. Like,
were you one of the guys that hit puberty like really fast?
Yeah, it's early. So like I played football from like 1st grade, 2nd grade, 3rd grade, all the way up to like high school freshman year, and I was like middle linebacker, running back, and I was like I wouldn't say I was big. I was always short, but I was like of average size. Mm-hmm. So there's like no way to know.
And then everyone just
and in
keeps
my head,
growing, and you're like, what the fuck?
In my head,
dude?
I'd be like, oh yeah, I could probably play like linebacker. Like I don't, I'm not gonna be a lineman, but
you're like a slot receiver guy now.
Yeah, not even. Oh, I'm too short for that.
How old are you?
33.
How
tall?
old? I'm sorry. How tall are you?
This is video, so I don't have to stand up or anything. But it depends on the day, I guess. So
don't be that guy. Give me.
I'd say I'm a solid 5'4".
Solid 5'4".
Yeah, if I put shoes on, 5'5" is the lie. It's like Michael Jordan he would say 6'6", right?
Yeah.
He's probably 6'5".
Well, you cannot
6'6" sounds good.
You can't look at
5'5" sounds good.
Dude, I played D1 football, man.
Everyone
These
lies,
guys,
right?
Yeah. Oh my God.
Like crazy.
Well, and the college lies for you.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Oh my God.
They round up.
Yeah, they round up. Sometimes 2 inches, man. Because I remember, because I played at Baylor, and then I walked on to Mizzou.
Nice.
And that's where I kind of stayed. And I remember thinking like, oh, I'm gonna walk on. I'm gonna have to go through some shit. And it started day one when I was looking at the roster, and they put me at 6'4", which I'm like barely 6'4", right?
Okay.
So I'm like 6'3" and some change. And there's other guys that I am totally taller than. I'm looking at you in the eyes. I see you every day, and they're listed at 6'6". I was like, what is this?
What shoes are you wearing?
Yeah, what is this crap?
On?
But that happened so many times. And then you'll see a guy listed at 300 pounds, and you will see them weigh in, and it's like 250, 260.
It's crazy.
So they're just taking a scholarship guy, and they're like, this is what you're going to be, so let's put 300. I've seen that done many times. So.
Well, at least with football, weight classes don't really matter. I mean, at the older levels, I know at the kids it does, but with our sport, you see people lie about their weight, and it's usually to disguise what weight class they're actually in.
Yeah.
Weight classes mean a lot more when it comes to mixed martial arts.
So do you guys do that a lot with like competitions?
I think a lot of people do it even in a training environment, and a lot of it's mostly just joking around, but you'll be like, hey, let's get all the lighter weight guys together and be like, right now I'm about 160. It's like, no, you're not. You're about 300. You're 200 pounds at least. But
so they'll
they can't help
train
yourself.
in their competition weight, but they don't cut it all.
No one, I was actually pretty fortunate when it came to my weight. Like I didn't cut a lot. My amateur fights, I fought all the way up to 160 was the heaviest I ever fought. Never weighed more than 135 as
really.
Oh yeah. I never. I still have never broke 140. I think 143 is my heaviest I've ever weighed. Maybe a little bit more during COVID. I probably got up to 45. But I'm just a lighter guy, and I fought. 125 was like my weight class, the easiest weight class. But I fought all the way down to 115. I've never lost at 115. That was like, that was me. How most people fight at 25. Like I was bigger than most people. So a little bit of weight cut to do that, and I felt like it's amazing. That's what people don't appreciate when people who aren't invested into the sport or have never trained. And they're like, why don't people just fight at their weight class? Like I don't get it. I don't get why would this person cut weight? You can't.
It's part of the game.
You cannot understand how much of an advantage 10 to 15 pounds of weight is when all things are equal. When it comes to skill, when it comes to cardio, and it's different when people don't know what they're doing. That's why I didn't mind as an amateur. I felt like I knew a secret that most people didn't, which isn't the case, but I felt that way. That's what gave me the confidence. Mm-hmm. It's like I know something that they don't know, and I can win. Now there's no secrets in the world. This is all, everyone knows how to fight. So
there's so much
pounds
availability.
Makes a difference,
There's so much availability now. There's gyms popping up everywhere. There's tons
which
of
I'm happy about. I love it. I love to see. It's cool. Think about you love football. Imagine if you go back in time to like the origins of football, and like you got to see it kind of grow into this like popular sport, and it was almost like exponential growth.
It's kind of the opposite now,
right?
Football's gone down actually because
in terms of popularity, or is more like people playing it.
I think popularity and people playing it, honestly, because at least at the high school youth sports level.
Is that more of the tackle football? Like people.
Yeah. I think
it's gotten
I think because they're tough.
Safety record.
It's tough to get numbers. Yeah. It's tough to get numbers. I've watched football programs just dwindle completely.
What's your thoughts on that for like your kids? Let's say your kid wants to play tackle football. Is that something you're for or against?
Yeah, I'm 100% for it.
I know that's a big conversation that people have now. It's like, I know a lot of people who loved playing football who won't let their kids play anymore.
It's silly because these kids are okay. Let them try. You got to let your kid try it. And if your kid is the one that pulls up before getting hit and he's the nail, he's not the hammer, then you got to have the conversation like, look, you got to learn how to hit or you're out. Because if you're the one that's getting hit all the time, there is a safety issue.
For sure.
But if it's like a head-to-head, like boom, two kids just going at it, they got the same equipment the NFL has. The same exact equipment. So if it's a safety issue for you as a parent, I think it's really silly.
Yeah.
But if your kid's just getting freaking crushed and he doesn't have like the dog in him to like play. And
I had too much dog in me. I was literally a dog. I would just run out and just run my head into people. I legitimately would just, I'd use my head like a battering ram.
Yeah,
and I was like encouraged to do that. That would be
dangerous as you start playing with adult, 18-year-old men.
Well, yeah, or even high school. I mean, I was, I went to Jacobs High School, and my freshman year, I was not much smaller than I am now. I was pretty much the same size. But I had like guys who were like your size in freshman year. I just remember that being like, what the hell? Why are these people so big? And like I would be like, all right, they give me the ball, and I think also maybe it's education too. Maybe coaches have gotten better. Hopefully, coaches have gotten better.
You would think so.
We didn't have coaches that like cared about us, I guess. I don't know. No one's going to listen that we're my football coach. I don't even know who they are, to be honest. But like
that's another thing that's changed.
They definitely didn't
crazy.
They didn't monitor how I was, They're like, hey, don't run into that 6'4" guy with your head. You're probably going to get hurt. Just go try to hit people. And so, I think a lot of it does come down to maybe good coaching too. Hopefully that evolution of it, you'll see people, maybe them training smarter, which I can circle back to MMA. I would say if I was to start again, I would train differently than I did when I was 16, 17, 18. I sparred, 4 days a week like I was in a fight. Like every sparring session was to kill people. It was like that was the energy of every spar. And I would never do that now.
The evolution of just physical activity and sports in general has changed in that category.
Yeah, the education
like pitching,
with concussions.
Baseball, right? pitching count in baseball, like now they don't go full go. They high schools practice like NFL, so they have like one full go day, and then everything else is like walk through and this, and they put on shells and they go no contact, and it's changed big time. Like I remember when
I think that's good for the most part, but it does kind of make you like reminisce about like a tougher time.
Yeah.
Being like, man, I just trained. I didn't think about it.
Well, when we were coached in football, maybe you can attest to this, dude, we did bear crawls, hills. We did some hard shit. We would plank for like 6 minutes straight just because the coach was like, come on, let's get in shape. And the coach was never in shape. But he would make us
big
kids.
Belly.
Yeah. And we would do, I remember the hardest thing we would do, one day a week during our summer camps, we would do bear crawls up the hill in full pads.
Yeah. I remember lots of bear crawls.
Yeah. Bear crawls up the hill in full pads. And if you did that now, oh man, you would have 20 parents.
So really, I feel very, very removed from it. So I would assume that would still be going on.
Yeah, well, I guess the MMA world is different because you're going in to get your ass kicked, and that's kind of changed with football now. Yeah. Now we're going to play football. Like we want to just play football. We don't want to do the training and
stuff. But how do you? I don't know. I feel like as a coach too, it's part of our responsibility, at least from like a jiu-jitsu perspective and MMA perspective for myself. Is I need to make sure that people are tested appropriately before the real thing, and I think especially true with fighting. I would feel irresponsible. It would feel irresponsible for me to put someone into a conflict situation, and never have them feel the worst feelings they could possibly have in the training environment. I think that's kind of where that came from. At least for me as a football player too, when I was younger, I wanted to be dead tired. So I know, like, and I'll never be that tired in a scrimmage. Like, it's never going to happen. So I just think that's where that should stem from, is like preparation.
100% agree.
Instead of it being torture,
it's these parents that never played sports that are the ones saying things like that.
Or their kid goes to them
or
and
they
says, my kid's complaining, and they see their kid and they're like, all right, I got to go say something. Like,
Yep. Or they
your
see,
kid, of
like,
course, is going to complain.
The
they're
one
tired.
story online of a kid
stroke.
dying of heat stroke.
Exactly.
And they're like, oh my God. So pads come off now, and it'll affect the entire country for the one kid. And not that I don't care that a kid is being affected by heat stroke.
It's hard to be, you don't want to be sensitive, of course, but you got to, you got to look at the big
reality
picture.
of the sport.
Yeah.
It's
fucking hot out.
It's hot. You need to hydrate. You need to prepare yourself. And a lot of that falls on you, not the coach.
Yeah.
If we're just running drills and you happen to get really hot and you
say something.
You got to say something, but it's just kind of the nature of the beast.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's cool. So your background when it came to football, that led you to arena football. That's like that was the end of your football journey? Yeah,
basically. Yeah. And arena's a joke. I will go ahead and say it. I did it because I could. And my heart was never really like totally in it. It was actually my coach, Rick Sizemore. He was like, it was a semi-pro football team that I was dabbling with.
Okay.
And he's like, hey man, I got this opportunity. Like, let's do it. And I was like, okay. And we went and played. We played for this other team, and I just did it because I could. I didn't really. So my heart wasn't really totally in it.
As much fun as you thought, or is it?
It was fun, but it was just like, I don't know. It wasn't worth it to me.
Yeah.
Like the driving and it was very little pay. It wasn't.
That's what I was going to ask too about pay. Like,
it was not.
I try to, just to get the parallels with MMA. So I imagine like arena football is almost like the smallest leagues. NFL being the UFC, right? The equivalent, where they make the most money or they're the most popular. But then you do have some smaller shit, like people who want to still play football. They still have an avenue. But you're not getting paid though, right? I mean, it's like
no. I think the guy making the most on team was like $2,000 a game.
Yeah. So I mean, very, very relative to like a pro fighter at a local small show.
Yeah, we got per diem and stuff when we needed it, and we got I got like gas money here and there.
Sandwich.
Yeah. They would give us food on the travel games and stuff. But
that sounds familiar too with some of the MMA fights. Get a free shirt and a sandwich. And
yep.
You're like, I'll do it.
Yep. And again, I did it because I could. The opportunity was there, and I remember thinking. My dad actually said, he's like, well, I feel like if you don't do it, you're gonna look back and be like, I should have done it.
Yeah,
and I was like, yeah,
that's hard to argue against too. It's
no, my claim to fame was I got a call from the Chicago Bears for a tryout.
Nice.
That was it.
Invincible, isn't that the movie?
Right. Yeah, you get the call. Eagles. Yeah, I got one call from the Bears. My sister was right next to me, and they wanted me to try out, and we went to schedule it.
How was that? What was the tryout like?
So I didn't even get to do it. That's the thing. Martellus Bennett was called in that year, and they were like, Steve who? So I just fell off the radar when they picked up Martellus Bennett. But I was just I never started at the D1 level. I was just kind of a combine freak. Yeah. So I was really good at 225. I was really good with broad jump. My 40 was okay. It was like a 4.7-ish. But yeah, I had like no film. So that was the biggest thing. But people gave me an opportunity because I could long snap. I was big. I was strong.
And you have some versatility too.
Right.
Yeah.
So and that's what me and my agent worked on forever. And then at some point, I started TNT, and I was like, okay, how long do I want to try this shit? And traveling around doing these. The CFL did offer me. I remember that, but I was like, I'm not going to Canada. All my family's here and everything. Right. Yeah, but it was fun. I look back and it was worth it. And without all that, I know in the strength conditioning world, the biggest thing right now was like, mental toughness. Like, why are we training mental toughness? Well, I would argue that mental toughness gave me my business. The mental toughness training that we did with football, the terribly hard workouts, and that's where I fell in love with the weight room. So
I mean, it kind of built your existence right now. Like how you made this, you've gotten this house, gotten your kids.
It did.
You can kind of give a little bit of credit towards those 100%. Workouts.
Yeah. And I look back and I love baseball. Baseball was actually my freaking sport.
Oh, really?
Yeah. But
wouldn't have guessed.
Yeah.
I would not have guessed.
Yeah. It was actually, that was where my love was.
One of our recurring jokes on our podcast is how much we hate baseball.
Really? Yeah. No,
we just like to make fun of it. I actually don't. I don't hate baseball. I just never played it in my life, ever. I never even
That was my most natural sport. Yeah. By far.
Injuries came up. Is that what?
My arm got torched, and it really.
So you're
really
a pitcher or just just?
Yeah, I was. I mean, I played everywhere, but I was a pitcher. And that's before we had pitch counts. But my dad was my coach, so my dad would be like, "How's your arm feel?" Like, it feels fine.
Put them in.
And it did not feel fine.
That's probably when you talk about mental toughness too. Is like we do need guidance from a mentor, from a coach, from someone with experience who can maybe tame us. Because I know me personally too. I will never tell anyone no. And I was like that with MMA.
You still like that now?
I've gotten a little smarter, but still dumb. I'm
a little more wise.
I'd like to think so. But
how do you
probably
feel
not.
at 30? I was just thinking about this the other day. Like, how do other 33-year-olds like me feel? Like, so when you wake up, do you just feel like, oh shit? Does it take you a minute to get going?
I'd say maybe like 3 years ago, before I started the school, I would say I wake up every day feeling like I'm like a 16-year-old kid. Feel amazing.
30 hits.
Well, and I don't know if it was just 30, but even the school. So I do feel like there's a level of mental strain that has affected my body. And it's not that I don't like what I'm doing. I love what I'm doing. But I have taken on a level of responsibility that I didn't have when I was even at 30 years old. So I don't think it was an age is, it's a number. It's like, are you really, I hate when people do that. People do that a lot, right? They're like, I'm 35. It's like, or I'm 40, whatever. Those are just numbers. It's what have you done with the mileage? There's some 25-year-olds who have put way more miles on than I have, or anyone else, So it's just relative to the number. But I just really do think there was a level of as I started my school, as I got into more stress. Now I wake up and I do kind of have to.
So you're saying as a business owner?
Yeah, I feel like the stress of life and just more, just in general.
But you're not attributing that to your age.
I feel great. I physically feel great. I think the mental side has made my body feel a little bit more beat up.
I can agree with you.
You know what I mean? It's like that. That's my initial response to that, because I've taken really good care of myself. I think personally, I don't know what other people. Same question. I do wonder. Like someone else who is 33, I ask them, and everyone's like, "Oh, I'm fucking, my elbow hurts, my back hurts." I wake up every day, I'm so happy. I feel great. But life has slowed me down, like the stress of making sure, because now I feel responsibility for other people that I never had before. Before it was just about me. Now it's like I need to be successful so that my students have a place to train, that people who are employed by me have success, that they have a place to train. So that level of healthy stress, it slows you down. It makes your body just. Some days you just don't want to get up.
Yeah. Me personally, it takes longer. I feel good. My body feels good. Yeah. If I start warming up when I start warming up for a workout and I get going to a workout, I feel 20.
Right.
You know, but waking up, it takes
But the wheels are slower. They're a little slower.
You know, you got to kind of like knock the rust off every morning.
I'm starting to feel that.
I got to loosen my back.
I never understood that too. You remember being young and old people saying that and be like, what are you talking
You're like,
I'll
just shut up,
warm
dude.
up.
Shut up, dude. You're just making excuses. And then you become 33 and you're like, oh, I get it.
But I am, and I'll say this publicly in a podcast, I'm excited. I'm legitimately excited to be a 50-year-old man. Like, I'm excited to be, if I'm lucky enough to become 50, you know, barring accidents and things that happen in life. But if I'm lucky, I'm excited to be a 50-year-old man who can do the things that I know I'll be able to do. Arrogantly saying that, like, I'm excited to be the guy who's on the mat at 50, 55 and still flowing and moving in ways that, like, a 20-year-old kid would be like, I can't do that.
Right.
You know, so I personally take a pride in that. I'm excited.
No, I'm with you there.
And I'm ready to prove that throughout the, you know, because there's going to be times, especially, you know, as you get older, we're going to be, it's easy to stop. It'll be easy to say, I'm a little rusty. It takes me too long to warm, so don't do it. Like, what is that? I don't have a choice.
Absolutely not.
This is my life, you know? So
right.
I'm excited
it's just
for it.
become, you definitely need more of a routine.
Yeah.
As you get older, and you need to do a little bit more to feel the way that you want to feel. Yeah. And that's, you know, that's supplementing, that's drinking your water, that's having a healthy diet, that's working out on the regular.
Sure. Yeah.
You know,
it can't just be train harder. And I think that's maybe a young person's mentality is like, just push, you know?
Yeah. Well, we talk about mileage. I did powerlifting for a small stint, and that easily added 10 years to my body. Yeah. Easily. I remember
I can imagine
the day that I deadlifted 700. I was programmed to deadlift 675. Okay.
To me, that's insane.
It's insane to me right now, dude. I was rack pulling.
What did you weigh?
I was like 255, 260.
Still, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Because then you get sometimes with those power, you get up to 300. You start getting obscenely big.
No, I wouldn't let myself get there. I could after this, I could show you a picture of what I look like. I was solid, dude. But I was scheduled to do 675 because I made a program for myself, and I was slowly moving up to 700. And one of the old heads comes up, which is surprising because he was an old head, and I was like, dude, I feel like you should respect the program more than anyone. But anyways, he's like, dude, this is at Forge Fitness.
I remember Forge.
You're freaking 25 off of 700. Do 700 today. I was like, no, I'm good. You know,
So you just push you to do heavier?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And then, you know, it started this like chain effect with everyone like, oh, dude, 700, do 700 today. Do 700. And then the whole gym started paying attention.
You're saying like peer pressure almost? Like
it was peer pressure.
Of other lifters?
I didn't touch a weight. Everyone put 700 on for me. I was like the guy deadlifting at the time. I wasn't even that strong compared to like people my size that are powerlifting.
Okay, whatever.
But I was natural.
Whatever you're saying, 700.
But I was natural. I will say that.
If you're getting close to 700.
Yeah. No.
I mean, I just know because I took that journey too. Not that I was into powerlifting, but I lifted a lot, and my road was to 400, and I was like, man, I just want to get 400 so bad.
That would be huge for you.
I got up to 365s, 370, like over 350. Mm-hmm. That was like my best.
Is this traditional or hex bar?
Traditional straight bars and standard. You know, not sumo or anything like that.
Yeah.
I mean, I put a lot of effort towards it, but I remember just thinking like, man, like now I do these big programs to get like 5 pounds more. I'm like, what is the difference for someone like for myself talking about martial arts between someone who can lift 400 pounds and someone who can lift 500? The amount of work that it takes to go from 400 to 500 is insane.
It's more so about how fast can you lift 300.
Yeah,
especially as an explosive athlete.
So as a coach, as an athletic,
you get diminishing returns after a certain point, right? Like you deadlifting another 100 pounds is not going to do anything. I would rather you deadlift 300. Okay, now we measure how fast you deadlift 300.
That's cool.
6 months
That's
later.
good to hear. I like that.
Yeah, don't worry about adding more strength.
The numbers are more
velocity.
for like it's again it's the peer pressure of
right.
What's your numbers?
Looking back at that 700, it was cool. It was like probably one of the coolest weight room moments I've ever had because the whole gym stopped. So I'm like, oh, fuck, now I got to do it.
You don't see it every day. Yeah.
No, you don't. And as I'm loading, and I was making kind of I was being a little bitch about it. I was like, guys, like I was, because that's a lot of fucking weight, dude. Yeah. So I had my mindset. I was very confident in 675. I was not confident in 700. So I was like walking around getting pissed off. I put on some music and I didn't have my headphones. So I was like playing under my bar. I think it was, Fetty Wap. And
the only thing that can get you to lift 700 pounds.
Yeah, Fetty Wap, baby. And I stood up with it. First 3 to 4 inches were great.
You feel
and
it.
my butt popped up. I felt my back arch, and I just remember thinking like everyone's watching pussy.
Finish it. Yeah.
And I stood up. It was probably the ugliest. I think I have it. No, I don't have 700 on film, but I have like 650 on film.
Nice.
650 look clean. 700 is not. And very cool, very awesome. I did it, blah, blah, blah. But it was ugly. And I go on a bike ride the next day. Okay. And I remember thinking, like, fuck, I got to go on a bike ride. Like, I'm so stiff.
Oh, no.
I am pedaling, and all of a sudden just go, and I just tip over like on the side of the road. I'm able to like reach my phone and call my dad. My dad comes and gets me. And it wasn't anything serious. It was just like my back just
Locked
like
up,
seized up.
I mean, if you think about that, it's just like that's your nervous system, your everything about you
dude.
just saying, like, what the hell are we doing?
Yeah.
How'd this happen?
My
to us?
body was just like, what the fuck were you thinking, dude? And, you know, my back's always, deadlifting and stuff, it gets tight and stuff and squatting. But yeah, it was bad. It was bad. And ever since that day, I have back issues.
Yeah.
Ever since
So,
that day.
you know, as a,
I got back issues right now. We wanted to do less polished with you, and we are going to do like a tap counter, like how many times you can tap me in 10 minutes. And I was like, no, man.
you tapped yourself in the morning with the back pain.
Tap.
Oh man, it's really hard. I don't have enough knowledge to really talk about it. You know, like as a, you know, I didn't go to college for this. I didn't, you know, but I've studied a lot when it comes to just my own body for fitness, and I have my own experiences for it. And I do go back and forth with obviously I believe in strength training. I think every human should do strength training. But it does get into those weird worlds of like you said, diminishing returns, or even just like, you know, what is your goal? If your goal is, I guess, to lift 700 pounds, you did it. Good job. But my goal is my goal is to feel good and to move well and to, you know, for longevity.
And that's what I tell my athletes.
I don't think there's ever going to be a necessary power lift like that, you know?
That's what we tell the athletes, you know, like if you want to be a power lifter and it's all about the number, that's a different story than what we're trying to do here. You know, we want you to move as efficiently and powerful as possible. Mm-hmm. That does not require an 800-pound squat. It doesn't.
Yeah.
I would rather you squat 315, like
clean,
boom,
yeah.
you know, like stand up quick with it, like do some VBT, some velocity based training.
What are your thoughts as a strength trainer on like dirty lifts? Like, you know, you look online, there's people and people. There's some people who are so against it, and everything's about perfect form, and then you have people who actually support the idea of dirty lifting in a healthy way, in a way that would be like, now we're building capacity and in real life or whatever it might be.
Dirty lifting happens. Yeah. It's gonna happen. Like when you're pushing that ceiling and you're trying to become better.
And I would say, like, for life, right? Like, what if you're moving, right?
Yeah.
Go pick up a box in a certain way, and it's not going to be this perfect form that you would.
It's not. And that's why we do a lot of unilateral stuff. We do a lot of odd stuff. And Colton's great at programming. He'll program you to be completely unstabilized, you know, because we want you to be stable. But we're all about movement. You're an athlete, okay? Yeah. It doesn't matter what you squat, what you press, what you push, what you pull, if you can't run fast. You know,
what's it for? Yeah.
Like what's all this strength for
so
if
it's
you
almost
can't
like
move yourself?
It's like a philosophy of, you know, there's some people who are just looking for perfect conditions for strength.
Right.
And that would be almost just performing the sport of powerlifting versus us being athletes. And, you know, I was big I did FRC, functional range conditioning. I did all those training modules, and that's what put my view of strength training into what it is. Because I personally am more interested in capacity in general. Like, what can I do? So I put myself in some weird positions and I try to engage and find strength, because that's what Jiu Jitsu is. There's nothing about Jiu Jitsu that looks like a healthy position. You know, when you're getting stacked over your head, your knees are over your head and you're trying to push someone off of you.
Your butthole in the air.
Yeah, I mean, you're trying to kick a human who's probably 100 pounds heavier than me off of you. That doesn't look like a perfect squat, you know, but I have to be able to perform. And you wonder when people are like, oh, I'm so strong, there's no way I'm getting hurt. But they only go in their perfect, you know, flat back, neutral spine, you know, and they do their lifts. And they're like, man, I'm so strong. But then I put them in a jiu-jitsu mat and they have no strength. And as soon as I rotate their body, you know, so I find that super fascinating. So I always like hearing that, because some people, you know, I talk to strength trainers and it's funny how as a professional, right, some of them are so experienced, but they just have a totally different viewpoint of what strength training should be. You know, there's a lot of different philosophies out there. It's funny to, you know, think about it. It's like you have just as much experience as them, but a totally different way of looking at it. Whose results are you going to, you know, actually appreciate?
Yeah.
You know, it's all about goals. For me, I need to be able to
100%.
I need to be able to react in every possible range of motion.
Right.
Cannot just be linear.
Now that doesn't mean that a squat wouldn't benefit you.
Right.
You know, so I want to make that clear too, because like, you know, I would definitely work some isometric eccentric stuff just to gain some like overall, because you're a stand-up guy. You don't sit right away.
No, I'm more of a wrestler.
Yeah, you're more of a wrestler.
Yeah.
So you would benefit from just being in that power position, you know,
I loved like, you know, we did a lot of, different versions of squats, like front loaded squats and stuff like that. It feels like wrestling.
Mm-hmm.
You know, what do you call those?
Pulled forward, zerchers.
Zerchers, lots of zercher lunges and squats. And it's, you know, I don't know if like you're saying, like I'm not so dogmatic with the idea of like sport specific. I think that gets a little too, people get really wacky and crazy. Like they're trying to make, you know, their lifting look just like a certain activity they're doing. Mm-hmm. It's okay to just squat every once in a while, but I do appreciate those types of lifts because I can feel the crossover, the carryover. You know, like a zercher is like a single leg pickup. It's like a high crotch. It feels that way, you know?
Right.
So I you know, it's just fun.
So what do you do right now for lifting? Because that one thing that I really struggled with when I was going full go with jiu-jitsu, because, you know,
to balance it, yeah.
It's a balance, yeah, because I'm a 6-day-a-week guy lifting.
Yeah.
So it was really tough to find the transition because I'm not, again, we're going to say age isn't a number, but I definitely feel it, you know, when I'm trying to keep up with my normal workout routine and I'm doing jiu-jitsu 2-3 times a week. It's tough to do those 2 a days. It's really tough. So what is your lifting routine right now?
I legitimately have done everything you can imagine when it comes to programming of like, you know.
You've tried it all.
Yeah. Lifting on the days you train hard, lifting on the other days. I've lifted every day, but very light. I've done a lot of body weight stuff. I've done everything you can imagine over the last, you know, 18 years of training. Mm-hmm. And now I've kind of gotten to a point where lifting has become more of just an enjoyable thing. You know, I lift when I want to lift when it comes to, you know, actually, you know, in the weight room. But I'm just a movement guy. Like I like moving. So a lot of my exercise, my strength training is completely body weight related.
Really?
Yeah, almost. That would be my workout choice.
Have you ever had like a real strength coach, real trainer?
We've done, so you might remember like Dave Davis.
Yeah.
So Dave Davis was like our strength and conditioning coach during my entire MMA career. So in Crystal Lake.
Because that was when Curran and Davis Speed Center were under the same building,
yes,
right? So they kind of coincided, worked together.
Not when I first started, but then the second place that we were at, that was in the same building. And then they separated in different locations and we would just go work out with Dave. So that was like my first as a kid. And like high school, I didn't learn anything about, you know, we didn't really have a strength and conditioning coach in wrestling. We just wrestled. Mm-hmm. But, you know, you just go wrestle. But that was my first introduction to any type of organized strength and conditioning. And then since then, I've, you know, dabbled with, you know, a couple of different people and stuff. But, yeah, I don't put as much time and effort into my gym time as I know a lot of people in MMA do. In MMA, it's like very.
Do you feel like you'd benefit more if you did?
Oh, without a doubt. I mean, I don't think anyone. So, like you said, of trying to balance it, that's the challenge. Because you get some people, you're like, hey, this guy is really good at strength and conditioning. I'm going to use him as a coach. But they have no perception of what it's like to try to train, for me, 3 times a day in jiu-jitsu. So then they'll program all the stuff, and they're trying to impress me with like how hard it is. I'm like, dude, I don't need it. Like you're overdoing it.
I will say, as a young trainer, you know,
you want them to feel it. Yes.
But now, you know, over the years, you learn that it's not about just killing yourself in the weight room.
Or killing your student or your, you know,
right.
Your,
it's about just
client.
getting a good, efficient workout that's going to benefit you.
Yeah.
Not tear you down all the time.
Yeah, and that's
now,
very
don't get
hard.
me wrong. Tearing you down every once in a while is okay, especially for the young bucks. It's okay. It's okay to
quick.
It's okay to bring a new guy in, you know, that's a little experienced and teach him how to push through something that's really freaking hard.
Yeah.
You know, like, all right, you know what?
That's the mental side of it too.
I think you've been kind of a pussy lately. Let's do 10 by 10 on squats.
Yeah, it's time.
It's like 10 by 10? Like, yeah, 10 by 10. You know, nothing crazy, but let's get some reps in. Let's push the weight.
You're going to be sore.
You got nothing going on. You know, let's just get some volume training in.
Yeah, I think that speaks more to like the relationship too with the client or with the athlete, is making sure that, you know them, you know what they're their mentality is, how they can handle stuff, or what their schedule is gonna be like. So it's tough for me to bounce around with different trainers, and
we gotta get you in the gym, man. I know we talked about it. When we first met.
Me and Kyle were gonna try to. It's tough. So you're in McHenry.
Mm-hmm.
I'm all the way in Bartlett.
Is that where you live too?
So I just bought a house, my first house. I'm in St. Charles. So even a little bit further. So it's over an hour.
Yeah.
Towards this area.
Well, maybe we could do like once a month or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would love it.
Just check in.
And like I said, I'm a student of movement, and strength training is a big part of it. It's like, I was very passionate about yoga. I've been a yoga teacher since I was 22 years old.
You still doing yoga?
So yoga to me is just something I do all the time. It's just something, what yoga is. So we can talk about like yoga. It's just a word that people use that most people have no idea what it means. Yeah, most people are like, let's just stretch it. They don't fully understand like what it actually means. And then a lot of it just becomes a physical movement practice. So I don't even use that term so much anymore. Yoga to me is a bigger practice. It's a mental practice as well.
A lot of people will take the spiritual angle with yoga.
And spirit. It's again, words are just so. Everyone says a word and then instantly they get something in their head. So like for me, like my yoga practice when I was younger was all about really just, it was like I want to move, I want to stretch, I want to get strong, I want to do all this stuff. I do yoga every single day of my life now, the way that I like to do it now, which is totally different. I don't teach as much as I used to. We have a couple classes at my school, but so for me, it's like the movement side of that. That's why I named my school Real Movement and Martial Arts. I incorporate that stuff into everything I do, and Jiu Jitsu and yoga are just the same thing in terms of movement. It's just one is combative and one is more of a self practice. Mm-hmm. But I really believe in, like, as a student of movement. So a lot of yogis, people who just do yoga, they just have never. They get stuck in their little, literally stuck in their mat. And they don't see the other parts of movement. It's changed and evolved a lot, but strength training becomes almost like that's going to make me tight. That's going to make but I think people do it the same way that like power lifters. A lot of yogis or people who practice yoga, they treat it like how power lifters do, of just like a weird ego thing about the aesthetics. And like, so if you're doing yoga for yoga's sake, go ahead, go for it. That was never my goal. I did it to improve my life outside of the mat, for jiu-jitsu, for competition, or just how I improve my life and feel good. But some people, they treat it like almost a competitive sport. I mean, literally there are competitions for yoga where it's about poses and what you can do. That to me is ridiculous and goofy. But so would be, no offense, deadlifting 700 pounds to me is ridiculous and goofy. Like, man, that's for what? But if you like it, you like it. And I
enjoyed it.
People, and people could be like, why are you fighting people in the cage? That's ridiculous and crazy. I would agree.
Yeah.
But I did it, and I loved it. And I so it's just funny how movement is such a part of everyone's life.
Refresh me. Where were we?
I was just talking about movement and
movement and
the
yoga.
Modalities, right? Like it's just fascinating to me. I just love the fact that humans, we all have their different fads for movement. We all find a way to move, whether it's even football, sports related. Sports is not for everyone either. So it's like I see the value. As a yoga teacher, I've met so many really interesting people, very interesting people in yoga. Like very. I'm a people. I enjoy weirdos. I like people who are different.
Have you always been like that?
Always, yeah.
I feel like that's really something that I've enjoyed in the last few years, like in my 30s.
Getting to know someone who's totally different, like different than you, I'm saying.
Well, in high school, you have, like you've seen the movie Mean Girls.
Yeah.
It's very real in a lot of aspects where they're like, there's the cliques and like you don't really cross lines to go into the other clique. I was kind of an outlier. I was a jock, but I was also a nerd. I was in like AP classes and stuff, so I got to know people, but I never.
So you were a smart nerd. You're saying so more like
I was a smart.
I was a dumb nerd. I nerded out about. I'm obsessive about certain things. So But
my definition of smart has also completely changed over the last couple of years. Could I read a book and comprehend? Yeah, that came very easy to me.
You're studious, yeah.
Yeah, I was willing to put in the work to get good grades. Mm-hmm. And to me that does not correlate with how smart or intelligent someone is.
Yeah, I struggled through school.
Yeah.
big time. But a lot of it by choice. I think I could have done better.
Pull your mic down a little bit for me.
A little lower.
Yeah. There you go.
I think I definitely by choice. I just didn't care. I was like, I'm just got to get through this kind of thing.
See, I think that aspect about you makes you smart in a way.
Yeah, like how to cheat the system. I mean, my girlfriend at the time in high school, she did every homework assignment. I did do like my final report. You remember like the book report things?
Spark Notes, baby.
I literally just
Spark Notes.
I knew how to get through. I think there is a level of like crafty
So
intelligence.
did you get good grades or no?
Just enough. Whatever.
C's get degrees, man.
I'm more like D's. But
D's get degrees too.
I shouldn't say that too. Like honestly, it just I did fine. It's just I just didn't care.
I always hated the idea of the confined system of education.
For sure.
Because it's like, well, you're going to learn about biology. In our field, it isn't necessary to know a little bit about biology, but like, I don't give a shit about this chemistry. Like, why do I need to learn about chemistry? Why do I need to learn calculus? I haven't touched calculus since
I think that's
freshman year of college.
A good teacher, and I'm not saying that we don't have good teachers in the American school
There's
system.
definitely good teachers.
There's definitely good teachers, great teachers. But that is the problem is a good teacher can answer that question well to you, and then you'll want to learn it. And I think there's maybe a lack of that. So when you say like, why do I need to learn calculus? A good teacher will tell you and give you examples and reasons why you should learn this. And I think that's my job. So I think about that stuff a lot as a teacher. I'm obsessed with the idea of it being an art form of how to get knowledge, transfer knowledge to someone. And like I realized over the last few years, but in general, that's the key to really good teachers is making you understand why this is important versus just showing you how. A lot of people can teach how. But to get you to be like, man, I love calculus now. That's a good teacher. How do I make you?
That's a really good teacher.
Yeah, that's a good teacher because they made it somehow valuable to you in a way that wasn't obviously before. Some way to make it make sense to you. But yeah, I do find that as an art form. I'm sure you have to do that. Sometimes you gotta, especially with kids, right? You work with kids, I'm guessing.
We work as young as 6 years old.
Yeah, I mean, how do you get a 6-year-old? Sometimes you gotta get this buy-in with these kids that you can't just teach them how to do stuff. You got to like, here's why this is interesting for you. This is how I want you to be
Even
invested.
then, dude, telling a 6-year-old this is why you're doing it. I honestly think when you're 10 and under, it's all about having fun.
Yeah.
You got to just blur the line between work and fun. Yeah. You want them to have fun and work hard, not even know they're working hard. Mm-hmm. And that's the key with a kid. Man, yeah. And then it just becomes a thing. Like, oh, I got to go work out because I've been doing it for a while. And you make it kind of a routine for a kid. But then, obviously every kid's going to be different too. It's a case by case basis.
Yeah,
this
some
is
kids
why
naturally
you're working out.
Some people don't. Like some kids just they don't ever want to work hard. So that it's like I gotta play mind games and trick them into working hard. It's fun. I work with kids all the time. I've been doing that since I was 18, and that's
do you have classes for young guys too? Like 3 or 4 year olds?
Yeah, we do. We break in. We call it like the littles and the big. So we have like 3 to 6. Some 6-year-olds can go into the bigger kids class. So it's more like 3 to 5 is like our toddler class, and then we have our big kids class.
Yeah, he's due. But my oldest is going to be jumping in. 3 is
it's like the interesting age because you do have some 3-year-olds who are just like there, and then you have some 3-year-olds
that are dinosaurs.
Like, they're not there yet. They're not like in the room. They're somewhere else in space in their head. So it is fun, but that's it's part of the almost like getting them used to being in a environment, a classroom environment.
You know what I love about working with kids, man, is they keep me so young.
Oh yeah.
We talk about being old and 33 and that number. I do not feel 33 when I'm training my 15-year-olds.
Yeah, oh yeah.
You're
rolling around the floor
with the guys. I'm talking trash with them. We'll mess around and we'll pull the mat out. We'll roll and then we'll do a set and then we'll talk about life and it's just it's so fun, man.
Yeah,
like
it's beautiful.
Training
that
kids
goes
is
back
awesome.
to what we're saying. Like I'm a people person. It's funny I say it because then in another conversation I would tell you how much I hate meeting new people and stuff, but I I was talking to my friend about this. Like nowadays at my age, I don't meet that many new people. I meet a lot of students and stuff, but like to go meet a new friend, I don't really, I don't do that. Hard for me to just go meet someone new.
I also don't want to meet new friends.
I don't have that. I'm not that guy. I don't go to bars and like go meet. I don't like none of that.
Yeah.
I'm just not a social dude. But I love weird people. Like kids are the weirdest people. You want to have a conversation like
they're
weird.
Like not even people yet.
They're just fascinated, but they have so many interesting takes on stuff. It's like I'll be teaching like a
no
jiu-jitsu
filter.
class. No filter.
The things that you think in your head, the kids
they come up with something great, man. So if you really want to have a funny conversation, get a group of 8-year-olds and train jiu-jitsu.
I know. We just had a football camp of 5 to the first group we did was like 5 to like 8 years old. So it was like getting them to focus was insane. Just insane.
Well, I believe if you a good teacher can do that. It's actually way harder to teach kids. Anyone who there's people who've never worked with kids.
Well, adults are just
relatively easy.
They're kind of dicks, at least in the training world.
Oh yeah.
It's why I've shied away from personal training so much because people are just so picky and they want this and they want it now. It's like that's not what fitness is. Like do you get a lot of people come in and they're like, "Oh, I want my blue belt now."
Yeah, I would say it's we've had a lot of really great people. I've been very fortunate in the last 3 years of my school, almost 4 years. It's just we've had really great people, but every once in a while there is we definitely don't have the majority of people like that. So martial arts I think attracts, for the most part, good people. But yeah, but I know exactly what you're talking about. There can be that almost and sometimes it's not even spoken, but you can tell when some people want that instant reward, or maybe not even reward, but instant success.
Mm-hmm.
And
that's not going to happen in MMA. It's definitely not going to happen in fitness.
If you want to, you're like, hey, I want abs. Like that's your goal.
Well, how long have you not had abs?
Yeah.
Well, it's been like 10 years. Okay, give it 10 years.
What do you eat? I could make you work out all you want, but like lifestyle matters.
The day I knew I hated personal training, it was when I was 20 years old. I was training at Wilson's Fitness Center in Columbia. And I've been training this girl for like, I don't know, a month or something. And she's like, why aren't I seeing any results? And I'm like, well, let's start with last night.
Bite your tongue for a moment first. Like, okay, hold on. Let's talk to really a client.
What'd you eat last night? And she's like, well, I had pizza last night. I was like, well, end of conversation. Like if you want to see results, you have to bury yourself into it. She's like, well, it's just taking too long. I'm like, it's been a month. We've had 8 sessions.
Yeah, dude, it's tough, man.
Again, what the heck?
Just relating it back for myself of, with martial arts and being a teacher, it makes you really like love and appreciate a good student. There are people out there who are just like, they're just the perfect person for this, let's say personal training for yourself. They come in with just the perfect attitude. Whatever you say, they're going to try, they're going to give their all. I appreciate those people, and the same thing for students. But then you have, it's just tough, and it makes you question the job sometimes. Like, what am I doing? Like these people are not getting. This isn't clicking. So part of my, goals in life is to get to a point where I can say to certain people, "This isn't for you." I need to have a certain level of success in my business in order to do that.
Right.
And I don't think most people do. I think especially if you're a young 20-year-old kid being a personal trainer, you don't have the freedom to say what you really feel.
I know.
You got to bite your
That's why we took all those clients. I would take every client I could. Give me everyone you can. And
hopefully you've gotten to a place a little bit. Of course, we are a service. We're a customer service. We're a business. So you have to be careful. But I do feel a little bit more freedom to be honest with people now that I didn't have when and maybe even the confidence as a younger person to say that to a grown man and be like, fucking grow up. Like it's not going to happen that easy. I can say that now and it feels good. Like it feels good to tell people sometimes like, hey, I don't think this is for you right now. The way that you're acting about this, like this isn't, whether it's the way they treat other people on the mat. Like,
isn't it funny that in a completely, I think about this a lot for some reason, but in a completely different setting. So the way I talk to my clients is like, well, dude, you got to stop being a little bitch about it. And you got to go eat your broccoli. You got to go eat your chicken. You got to stop eating
do things
pizza.
You don't want to do sometimes.
And I'm very, very forward about what I say. But if you said that in any other scenario, like if I said that to someone in a grocery store, they'd be like, you're an asshole. But people in my gym are like, I really appreciate that you did that. Like we just had 2 clients come back. And they're like, honestly, I need you yelling at me. I couldn't do it without you. And I'm like, all right, welcome back.
Yeah.
Gave him a big hug, and now we're back to it. But I've always thought it was really funny. Like if I talk to people
I'm
the way I
technically
talk
paying
to
you to
them.
do it.
Yeah, they're paying me to do it. That's right. But it's just it's funny how we need that.
Yeah.
You know, we need someone. It's like even with someone with your expertise, a coach is nice. A coach is really freaking nice. Not having to think, not like, you know, maybe scheduling personal or strength and conditioning with your rolling and things like that. Like you said, it's nice to have someone kind of tone you down and give you some structure. It's just funny when I think about what you can say as like the leader in your household, because that's what your business is, a household.
Yeah.
And everything stems from the top down. And
How
they
you
look
run
to you
that
for
matters.
that guidance, and how you run that absolutely matters.
Yeah.
And one thing I've done a lot, you know, in the past few years is I've set the tone with people. So I don't get a lot of those people that are like, okay, I want to see results in 30 days. Like, okay, well, you're not going to see it, you know? So
you could weed them out right away.
yeah, you set that tone, you know, what to expect, how to expect it, what kind of commitment are we looking at? And I'm very upfront about all that. So people come in very realistically now.
Yeah, that's great.
Very
realistic. I think you just set the culture for your workspace.
Right.
You know, and it kind of follows, and people instantly get weeded out. And that's the same for jiu-jitsu and for martial arts. You can, you know, and then the bad part is if you do have a bad culture or you're not fostering what you want, before you know it, it disintegrates into like, it deteriorates into something that, you know, you got these people who are just either they're assholes. They don't understand what we're doing. Like what the environment they're trying to create, because it is like when I say something, if like you said, to a person in the grocery store, they'd be like, you're an asshole. But the accountability that I'm holding for someone, they appreciate with the culture that we've done.
Exactly right.
And it's with love. It's all so much love. Like I'm like I would do to my best friend. I feel that with
you, man. Like I feel like
I choked you with as much love as I could when I tried to. It was like, you know, this is the lesson.
You put my tooth back, and then you're like, oh god. It was just like we laughed together, and then we kept rolling.
Yeah.
I think we had like 30 seconds left in our match, and we just kept rolling.
Yeah, man.
But no, I feel like as a person, I do
thanks,
feel
man.
like you're. As weird as it sounds, I feel like you're a very loving dude, and
I
you care.
And that's a practice.
Ton.
You know, like I said about yoga and, you know, whatever you want to believe with you know, your spirituality of what, you know, what you believe in life. But, you know, I have a really, like you talk about screws loose and fighting. I have some parts of me that's like, man, I don't like that part of me. And I work hard to not be. Yeah. I think everyone does, right?
Everyone does.
Some people act like they don't. And those are people I don't like. Those are the, you know, people who are just not honest with themselves. But I work hard to be the person I want to be. And, you know, just like working out, just like training, you know, takes practice. And I have a meditation practice for myself, a metta practice, which is loving kindness. That is the only thing that keeps me from going crazy sometimes. Because like those.
So what's your avenue to let out that screw loose, like that screw loose part of you, that mean streak, or we could call it? How do you let that out?
I mean, that's I don't know how the average, especially male, and this is true for females as well, but the average male, like someone our age, how do they live life without martial arts? I've never done it, so I don't know.
So you kind of already have that natural release all the time.
All the time. I'm fighting all the time. Yeah,
weightlifting is mine.
There's like an anger that you can get out, right? There's a passion, like a powerful. You know, it's hard to describe, right?
Yeah,
there's a word for it that I don't know.
Because I don't want to say I'm an angry person. It's like this extra bit of energy that I just don't have to put towards being angry later, because I already worked my ass off at 6 a.m.
Well, like hypothetical, let's say we take away all your strength training. You're not allowed to go to the gym. And let's just imagine that life. So how does that affect your kids? How does that affect your wife? How does it affect you mentally inside?
What would be the hangry word for not lifting? That's what it would be.
That's what it is. Like
that's what it'd be.
And it's like there's just so many people in the world. I think, and I see at least, you know, when I watch when I go drive around the street and I see assholes like, you know, honking at people, fucking angry. That guy doesn't train. I can almost guarantee that guy hasn't gotten on the mat with another person and gotten beat up and then laughed and then beat someone else up and laughed and like had fun and exchanged and gotten like that, you know. It's I don't know what the word. There's no real easy word for it. I don't want to say violence, because violence has a negative. It's not negative, but there is like violent. A level of violence that every human needs to get out.
Well, it's in our nature.
Otherwise, it boils into, you know, stupid shit. What are you getting mad at the bank teller? What are you getting mad at, like, at the grocery store? You're like, why certain things just fucking people just get eaten up. That stuff just rolls off my back. You know, like how I just don't know how a man of my age who doesn't train, doesn't do lifting, doesn't do some outlet.
How he survives.
How do they survive in the day-to-day life? They just must be on edge all the time. It's tough. That's a tough life. So I'm happy. I'm grateful that I found something. For me, it's martial arts, it's jiu-jitsu, it's training. I will always have that in my life, no matter what. And I know I'm preparing myself. I've lived a very fortunate life, and I'm aware of that, grateful for that when it comes to loss and it comes to just, there's a lot of people who have a lot worse than I do. But
there's always someone that has worse.
And I feel for them, and I feel for that life. And I know people personally who've had some really bad things happen to them. And they find those outlets. And I just know that I'm preparing myself for that day. There's going to be a day, everyone in this room will have something really bad happen at some point, whether it's loved ones, bad things happen. Life will happen. And I know that everything I've done before that moment is helping me prepare for it. And, I know it sounds silly, but like jiu-jitsu is exactly what helps me get through those moments, or will get through those moments. I'll always be able to come back to the mat, get out some of this frustration, whatever it might be, in a healthy manner, versus being that guy who's just exploding on people. Or you take someone you love, like your wife or your kid. Why do dads yell at their kids in a way that isn't productive? Mm-hmm. It's not about the kid. That dad has something going on that's not right. They're not taking care of. So it's I feel like we're all preparing for those moments. And that's what training is.
Yeah. Yeah, that's beautiful, man. Yeah. And there's something about jiu-jitsu, and I try to get people to do jiu-jitsu all the time. And
you become an advocate? You're like,
oh yeah, I've been an advocate for forever, awesome, yeah. Ever since I started. Because I did the striking and stuff, right? Mm-hmm. And when I was doing the striking, there's a violence aspect to it, but it's almost like it's like, why are you trying to hit this so hard? Like why? There's not really, when you get really good, there's a flow, and you get in a routine, there's a flow, and
there's lots of technique. So
there's lots of technique.
Yeah, some of those people are like, it's just striking, but there can be an art to it too.
Oh, 100%, 100%. But and then when you do jiu-jitsu, it's like, oh man, I'm having tough time describing it, but it's like, it's beautiful. It really is. And
it needs to be experienced to really be understood. Yeah. There is no real, I'm sure there's more elegant people than us. We're kind of idiots. We played football, got hit in the head. I don't have the vernacular and the vocabulary to express it. But I know what you're saying. It's like, it needs to be felt, and it's there's an art to it.
You know what I love about it too? And maybe this is the masculine caveman in me, but I love bonding with a bunch of dudes. Yeah. I love it.
Yeah. I talk about this a lot. We talk about it with some, veterans who get, come back from overseas, and they lose that bonding. And, martial arts community can be that, jiu-jitsu community, especially because you're sweating with guys, you're beating each other up, and then you're making jokes and having fun.
And you're getting an amazing workout.
Yeah. Oh, the benefits are there. So it's
the workout.
But I would say that the workout is so secondary for a lot of people. Not for everyone, but that is so secondary to the bonding that you're talking about, like hanging out with your buddies.
But one thing I'm jealous of you is the fitness and the MMA, they coincide together. The benefits of MMA, like the camaraderie and things like that. And though you do get the camaraderie aspect in fitness, when you're grinding with someone in a gym, it's nothing like rolling with someone, getting tapped out, laughing about it, shaking hands after, telling stories together. It's just not as intimate. Yeah, in a
literally
sense. So,
physically close.
Yeah, but you get the fitness. No, like the fitness. That's behind wrestling. I think jiu-jitsu is second behind wrestling's harder.
Wrestling's one of the hardest things in the world. Jiu-jitsu is intentionally easy. That's like the whole point of it. Right. You know what I'm saying? Like it's people say like, there was the classic, Khabib, right? The fighter. Mm-hmm. He had that shirt that said like, if jiu-jitsu, or if Sambo was easy, it'd be called jiu-jitsu. And like, everyone's like, oh, like angry about that. It's like, no, that's 100% true. Yeah. Like that's the whole philosophy behind jiu-jitsu. It's the gentle art. It's supposed to be easy. It's supposed to be physical. Like, if you are only relying on the power and the strength of it, you're missing the whole point of jiu-jitsu. So the flow, the rhythm, the timing that's supposed to be, taking place, that's what wrestling is. Intentionally the opposite. I think of them as just fire and water. When it comes to sports, it's all grappling. Grappling is the umbrella, but jiu-jitsu as a sport it's designed, and you get some really rough people in jiu-jitsu. I'm not saying they're soft or anything like that, but that's literally what it means. You know, judo, same concept. Judo is so rough if you watch it, but the art of jiu-jitsu or judo, it's the gentle way. That's what it means. You know, so it's about technique. And I think that's in essence what they mean by gentle. It doesn't mean be soft and fragile. It means be intelligent and use technique versus just overpowering someone.
It was actually Colton who said something that's really stuck with me. But like after, you know, a huge football game or a huge football practice, maybe a scrimmage, dude, you are beat to shit. Okay, depending on your position, obviously. But like tight end, fullback, H-back is what I played. And when we would scrimmage at Mizzou, you know, I'm going up against some of the biggest, strongest dudes. I was repping ones and twos. So like I played with Coney Ely, I played with Blaine Gabbert, I played with some
boys.
big name, big boys, like giant dudes. I remember one time we would do one thing I hated about football is we would run the same play over and over, so the defense knew it was coming. And I had this crack block on Coney Ely, and he knew it was coming. So instead of going for the ball, dude would just go straight at me.
Running
just, But anyways,
do it again.
We
again.
would just do it over and over again. Dude knew it was coming. I was like, this is stupid. Like he knows I'm coming to block him. And but anyways, what I'm getting at is I would feel so beat up, like so beat up. And to go off the gentle aspect that you're saying, dude, I can roll 3 hours and I might be tired, but I'm not beat up.
And you have certain muscle strain. You're using muscles that you're not used to. You'll be sore.
Like when you get started, I'm not going to say you're not going to be sore.
Yeah.
Like your neck is going to be stiff for a solid week. If you're not used to it, your neck, when I first started, I was just like, oh my God.
Yeah, sometimes we paint this picture to new people. It's like, oh, you just flow and trade. It's still rough.
And then
that's
we handshake and we hang out after, and I have a new family.
It's still tough, but yeah, that's the football. The way that you say it, that's similar to some, and it's. We were talking about this with good friends of ours from the barracks, Mario Gonzalez.
So what is the barracks? The barracks is like another gym.
I've
seen it commented on social media.
Yeah, another school. The owners are Mario Gonzalez, who you might know of. He was a D1 wrestler, really good wrestler. And then
what's his Instagram? Isn't that
Gorilla? Gorilla.
Yeah, that's what it is.
So him and his brother, Louis, they started the barracks during COVID because they just wanted a place to work out, and then it became a school, and now they partnered up with us with the goal of us developing a really good team, a competitive team to help with Nogi, and then I'm going to help them with their curriculum, help them with teaching because they want to build up their student base. So that's kind of like our relationship and what we're doing. But we just did a podcast with them, and we were talking about, you know, they come from a wrestling background, and you can feel it, you can see it. They are wrestlers at heart, and they're developing their jiu-jitsu. And then, you know, my jiu-jitsu background with other people, and I love wrestling, but at my core, jiu-jitsu is at my core. My personality is jiu-jitsu. It's like you try to, you know, I'm just gonna flow, and when you try to beat me up, I'm just gonna melt and move. Whereas Mario and they have
brute
that skill. Oh, they're just big, strong, hard-nosed guys. But they were talking about that element with wrestling. It's newer schools of thought is almost like taking the jiu-jitsu approach into wrestling, or just, you know, you don't have to use the word jiu-jitsu, but the approach of like more tactical, more technical, the softer, quote unquote, softer approach to wrestling.
Chess move instead of the checkers.
So you have kind of like these two different schools of thought, and you have a lot of success and longevity with the people who are training a little bit, what I would say, smarter, instead of just beat the shit. And we're talking about this the whole podcast, but like the old school approach for football coaches, we're just beating each other up and you know, beating up the kids, and then before you know it, the parents are complaining, whatever. So like, there is a fine line to find where there's a more technical approach.
The answer is always somewhere in the middle.
Almost always, right? For everything.
It's almost always somewhere in the middle.
That goes back to my spiritual approach to life of the middle way. You know, that is always the case.
Yeah.
You know?
It's like nutrition now. Nutrition's so funny to me. It's like you see the carnivores
Fads, right?
And they're like carnivore only. And then you see the vegans.
Swings right back. Yeah.
Vegan, you're an animal killer and vegan's the way to go, and that's what kills cancer. The answer is somewhere in the middle. Have a little bit of meat, have a little bit of fruits and vegetables. Yeah. Have a nice balance of everything.
And don't be so dogmatic about your life and your diet, you know?
Yeah. You're not the one doing the perfect diet. As someone, you know, like there's many ways to skin a cat.
Yeah.
Find your way.
And this is, I really believe in that approach as a concept for life of, you know, and that goes back to meeting new people and different people, strange, weird people. Like, I don't understand anything about you. I get kind of like, I want to meet you somewhere and talk to you about it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And you know, it's tough. And of course there's exceptions to everything, and that's part of it. You know, there's some people in the world that's like, man, I don't understand you, and it's hard for me to appreciate you. But I want to be that guy who can kind of cross over and talk to people. You know? Yeah. It's just interesting.
That's awesome.
But I do think again, just about the wrestling part of it, or the mentality. So for anyone who's interested in jiu-jitsu, you know, you could take someone who has, it's very tough to take someone our age who's never done any type of martial arts and throw them. There is no adult wrestling there might be somewhere in the world, but it's very rare to find adult wrestling programs. And there's a reason, because it's so hard to do on your body.
So hard.
Just the nature of the sport is designed to be conflict back, like football, like running into each other. Imagine taking a 33-year-old who's never played football and you put him into what you did, you know, as a pro. They're not going to last. They're going to make it one day. Whereas, ironically, with jiu-jitsu, we have people start. I mean, my oldest student was 76 years old as of recent. I mean, that's
oldest new student.
Started jiu-jitsu at 70. He started at 72, trained for 2 years, 74, and got his blue belt. You know, it's like he trained, and he of course we adjust to people's age. You know, we adjust for them, but just to go to show that, like, I guarantee no 72-year-old is going to start football. Like, well, I mean, it'd be pretty cool.
Again, that's another beautiful thing about jiu-jitsu is you can take it at really any age.
And still be with good coaching, good teaching. It can be applied for anyone. You know, any fitness level, which is fascinating, because it's very rare that you can do that with most sports.
Right.
You know.
So where are you at now? So now you have your gym, Real MMA.
Yeah.
You're starting a competition team.
So yeah, I mean,
you've already started.
We've already did. I mean, it's nothing new. So you know, it's just a big part of my life in general. Like I said, when I was young, MMA was just that avenue. I believe, and I still do believe that fighting is the pinnacle of what we do. You know, if you really want to know whether your jiu-jitsu works, at the end of the day, you got to see if it works. If someone punches you in the face, can you handle it? But you know, MMA is not for everyone. Competing, I could argue competing could be for almost anyone. It's not going to be for everyone. I'm talking about competing in jiu-jitsu. But I really do believe in it. I believe it's a really important thing as someone who is someone who is healthy and able-bodied.
You're saying physically going to competitions for jiu-jitsu.
Competing in jiu-jitsu, I really believe in it. I don't make students compete, but I believe in it as an idea. If someone healthy comes to me,
you think you should?
I think almost everyone should. There's exceptions, right? But
what would the exception be?
You know, health-related heart issues. You know, if you have an orthopedic issue that someone has an injury. I'm not just going to be like,
inabilities.
Yeah, you know, of course we should be mindful of that, right? But in general, as a healthy young person, man or woman, I push people into it in a healthy way. You know, it's not for everyone, but I really believe what I've learned from competing, what you can potentially learn from competing. You know, like you mentioned about your life and how football is influenced and the hard sessions has influenced everything you do in life. Some people need that. Maybe they've never experienced that. And even just one jiu-jitsu competition could be that moment where they realize maybe it breaks them down in a healthy way, where they think of themselves as this and they need to be
knocked down a notch.
Maybe I need to try harder. Maybe everything has come easy to me until now I ran into a difficult problem. Or the opposite, where there's people who they don't believe in themselves at all. They think they're just...
And they win a competition.
And they go win a match. Or they even just have a competitive match. I've seen it from people. You know, I have so many stories, and I won't list names and stuff, but it's like, I've seen that from people who are not... I can feel no confidence from them. They walk in, they don't look at me, they don't, they're very, very shy. And they go do a tournament after some little bit of pushing, healthy pushing, and be like, I think you can do it, you should do it. And they do it, and like, man, like you just see their eyes open up, like, I can actually compete. Even if they don't win, sometimes it's even just the idea that, like, man, I survived that.
Yeah.
As that's a very special thing. And, we see it with kids, of course. And, but I don't care, from any age. You know, you could take a 40-year-old old guy who comes in and, he's not in great shape. He starts getting in shape. He starts training for it. He does a competition. And their entire life can be changed by a moment like that, and for the better, Well,
it's a very vulnerable thing to do, to
do those
competitions.
Oh, yeah, man. Yeah, you put yourself out there with the risk, the very likely risk, not just of injury. Injury is injury, whatever. You know, stuff happens. You can get injured. Obviously, driving a car is very dangerous, but we all do it. You know, there's a risk in everything we do. You know, but the risk of being embarrassed is what people mostly think about. You know,
and it's different than a team sport because
oh, yeah.
you lose is on you. You win, it's also on you.
Yeah.
You know, and
I
that's
personally gravitated towards that, you know.
I wish I did.
Yeah.
You know, I did this, I did one wrestling practice when I was in 8th grade. And I was like, you know, I think I kind of want to try this. And my dad took me to it. And there was no easing into it. It was like, all right, climb on this kid that you don't know. And I remember I just wasn't into that idea.
Are you wearing singlets yet? Like,
well, the dudes were like in singlets, I think. And I was the one in shorts and shirts. So I felt like an oddball, one. And two, I was immediately, you know, climbing on someone. And I was like, oh, man. I look back and I wish someone would have just eased me into it a little bit more because it was so foreign to me.
It's exactly what we were saying about good teachers. I'm not saying your coach was a bad coach or a bad teacher, but that's my job.
Yeah.
My job is to look at this kid or this adult and give them the proper stimulus to potentially fall in love with something. And maybe I do that in the most proper way, and they still don't. That's life. Not everything's for everyone, but I want to give you the best shot to fall in love with something I believe in, and you know, my job is to convince you on why this is important. It's not easy to do. Sometimes it's like, hey, jump on this guy and just hold him down. And I'm a kid. I've never wrestled. Like, no, it's gross. I'm not gonna do that. What are you talking about? How do I convince? This is gay.
Well, but this is so gay.
And maybe for you, it could have been the stimulus of like, okay, this kid wants to beat you up, and if you let him get up to his feet, he's gonna kick your ass.
That probably would have worked for me.
For a lot of kids, it does.
That probably would have worked.
You know
what
I mean? Like for a high school kid, it's like you're like, okay, you're gonna let him get up and beat you up. You know, I'm like, well, okay, I'm gonna hold this motherfucker down,
yeah,
or whatever it is. You know, it's like, you know, you got to be creative. You got to be intelligent with how. And some people, it's just you got to ease them into live training or hard training, and you got to show them.
Yeah, I was not eased in.
Some people,
I wish I was, man.
Yeah, and it's
they just threw me into the fire, and I was.
But at the end of the day, man, your life is pretty good. I think it worked out, and you know, you went through the right paths for your athletic background.
Yeah.
That led you to a really great school. You're doing awesome stuff with TNT. And
yeah, I'm definitely not regretful. You know, you can always look back in hindsight and say,
Don't get me
this
started,
would have been cool. That would have been cool. But I'm not like regretful.
I've had sleepless nights thinking about things I could have done different or better. But that's I'm very, very content and happy with the choices of my competitive life. You know, I watch a fight. Did you watch the last UFC? Did you watch with Dustin Poirier? I mean, it was a great fight. Awesome fight.
It was an awesome fight. Yes.
Yeah, with Islam Makhachev. And
I saw it later. Yeah. But man, I can't
so
stay. I can't stay after that stuff anymore.
I was exhausted. Yeah, that's 32. Huh? I'm old. Oh, 33.
33.
I forget I'm 33. But I think of that like I watch those fights live, and I still want to go. I want to get in the cage. I want to fight. But then I really think about that. I take another step deeper and think about it's like, I don't know. I don't know if that's. I might still fight. I still have desires to do it.
Me too, man.
I'm sure. Yeah.
Me too.
Yeah.
I was actually going to talk about that with you when we're done. I want to get a schedule with you to kind of work more stuff.
For sure, man.
But I saw Brett. I took kids to the park, and Brett from One Touch was there. And
good friend of mine.
Took my back.
Brett jumped on you?
He's like, what are you going to do, bitch? I was like, what the hell's going on? and I was like, am I really about to get a fight at the park? And it was Brett.
Yeah, that sounds right.
Yeah, we were just kind of talking back and forth. And every time I see him, because I trained with him for probably 2 months.
Oh, cool.
And we had every intention to get started.
He's got a great program for MMA. Different philosophy on how we train. Me and him, we've known each other forever. Great friend of mine. And it's funny how, you know, like personalities, we're different people, but we are like, every time I see Brett, I run into him while we're coaching, he'll be coaching someone, I'll be coaching someone for MMA.
Yeah.
So we're in the same locker room together.
Yeah.
And me and him, it's like, we've been hanging out every day again. Like we just talk about stuff, you know, it's funny how again, personalities, I think Brett's a weird person. I'll say it if you watch it. I think Brett's he's like an interesting character. He's a character.
He's very
fascinating guy.
Yeah, he's fascinating.
Passionate.
When we were training and we were like, you know, going good. Yeah, very intense. He would send me these videos of like old ancient Rome.
He loves history. Me and him would just talk about history all the time.
He would send me these like it was like a 45-minute video of ancient Rome. I was like, bro, I ain't watching that.
I'm gonna skim through it.
Yeah. I was like, I'll skim it for you. He's like, at least skim it.
Yeah, no, I love Brett, and I think that's again, it's like philosophies. Different trainers have different ways of doing things, and like you said, many different ways to skin a cat. Oh yeah, it's great. I train people different than how he trains people for sure.
Yeah,
and but we came from a similar background when it came to jiu-jitsu. We got our belts together, a lot of our belts together, and it's. But to me, that's what makes jiu-jitsu really interesting too. For anyone who still doesn't understand what jiu-jitsu is like.
You guys are both at Curran, right?
We got I got my black belt from Jeff Curran in 2016. And I think me and Brett got our brown belts together. I think we both got our purple belts and brown belts together on the same day.
That's cool.
Yeah. So I have
that's a bond that you can't break, right?
There. And just in general too, Brett was I think he stopped fighting when I started fighting. Like he was doing amateur fights, and I think he broke his hand really bad. I don't know if he told you so, but he got an injury, a really bad injury.
Do you remember, Alex? No.
So I remember, when we were training together, and then he became more of a coach, and he did a lot of coaching stuff for us and for us fighters when we were in Crystal Lake, and so I was really close to him. Again, he's a great personality. He's something else. I love his stories. He's got so many, you got history and
Tons
stuff.
Of stories.
So I'm glad he was on the show with you guys.
Yeah. Because you listened to that.
I listened to most
right?
of it. Yeah. He's a great guy, man. So that's cool. But yeah, it's personalities, man. I love people. So when I think about jiu-jitsu,
you could definitely feel that about you.
And with jiu-jitsu, you're mentioning about how close it is, and I learn a lot about someone the moment I touch them in jiu-jitsu. I know it sounds weird, sounds kind of creepy, but I'll go grapple with someone, and I instantly know your personality for the most. I know a lot about you. Mm-hmm. I can tell, the important stuff.
So what'd you know about me right when you rolled with me?
You're a little intense. I could tell you you have a sense of yourself. You're like a confident, a comfortability with your body and how you move. Mm-hmm. And that's only an athlete has that. Mm-hmm. There's, again, people who maybe never done anything athletic in their life, and they come on the mat, you instantly feel that. It's a lack of confidence. Yeah. Physical confidence. I
don't have that.
Yeah, you're very confident. You're like, just start going. Yep. Some people don't have that, man, and it takes time to build. And then, from a positive to negative perspective of that, sometimes that confidence needs to be tailored into the training. Yeah. Right? And the more you train jiu-jitsu, the more your confidence now, where you should be and shouldn't be, right? Yep. It's but yeah, I think it's fascinating, dude. And you learn a lot about people, how they treat people by rolling, and again, the personalities are so important.
Do they shake your hand when you're done? Do they ask you any questions? What's your name? Yeah. No, it's
when they
true.
bump you, do they say sorry, or they're like, fuck you? You learn a lot about people from rolling with them.
Very true. And if they knock your tooth back, do they bring it up at all?
Yeah, I gotta pay your bills for it.
Yeah. No bills. You're good. But we're coming up on our hour 40. Okay, so I always end every show. You probably know this. You listen to a couple. What kind of advice, let's say, would you give a young Joey when did you start fighting?
I started
senior year high school. Yeah. So let's say freshman year high school, Joey stopped growing. What kind of advice? What kind of advice would you give yourself? Most of our viewers are on the younger side. So
yeah. Well, again, I don't have any true regrets about anything in my lifestyle, so I wouldn't try to convince myself to do anything different. But I would remind myself, with that 2020 vision, to enjoy the process of everything. So I would tell myself to truly take your time and enjoy the little shit that at the time you probably don't want to do, like cutting weight and the process of going to fights and long drives and flights and all the stuff that seems tedious, to appreciate it, because someday you probably won't be doing what you're doing. So I would just remind myself to really be more grateful for the opportunities. And I felt like there was times in my life when I was younger that I just kind of almost put the fast forward button on and just let's get through this. Let's get to the next thing. Let's do this. Maybe to slow things down and enjoy it. That would be my best advice to a young person is to be okay with it feeling like a long time.
A great way to realize you want to slow things down is have kids.
Nice. Interesting.
I keep telling myself, as they Luke is running now. He's sprinting today.
You remember when he was this
pulled
big?
Up today, right? And he sprinted to me, and my first thought was when did that get so fast? You know, like I felt like yesterday you were just crawling to me, you know?
Yeah.
I can cry thinking about it. Like
That's awesome, man.
holding them and
But I look up to that, you know, to you and with your lifestyle, because that is where I want to head in my life next, you know?
Yeah.
I would love to have that. I feel like that's, you know, I think I'll be okay in my life if I never have kids, but I know it would be something, that I would, again, no regrets in life. I mean, what can you do? It's life.
yeah, if it doesn't happen, it doesn't happen.
Like, I can't, you know, you can't
You don't
beat
want to
yourself
force
up.
something
But
like
that's something that feels very important to me in this phase of my life, going forward, where I want to head.
Yeah, 100%, man. But anyways, thank you
Thanks,
so
man.
much for coming on the
appreciate
show,
it.
man.
Hope you had fun.
I definitely look forward to rolling with you and trying to get your ass back, dude.
Try to choke my tooth out next time. Thanks,
Appreciate
buddy.
it, bro.